better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romance in the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, ah, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romance in the Pod. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey Randolph.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, I made you guys watch In and Out.
And I prefer this movie animal
Style.
I need to apologize in advance because my voice sounds like I swallowed a chainsaw or a blender, and I don't know why.
Hot take. I like this better than your normal voice.
I have been traveling for the past 2 days, and I don't know what happened.
Could it be COVID again?
I'm not sick. I feel fine, but it's just like my voice is gone for some reason, or I swallowed a blender. I don't know.
Did a sea witch steal it?
Can you tune your radio throat back to your old radio voice?
So today we're going to be talking about In and Out. I think it's worse when I try to do the radio voice right now.
You got to hit the radio a couple times.
Todd.
What's up?
You've got your looks, your pretty face, and don't underestimate the importance of body language.
I do think it's great that you clearly love a movie where little girls learned that if they wanted to get the prince, they just needed to shut their mouths.
Well, it was the 90s, kind of like this movie where it's like, lose the weight, get the man, and then tries to bring it around at the end and almost makes it.
Dude, Paige, okay, no joke. I was shocked when they tried to save it at the end, but like in a good way. I was like,
Yeah, so close.
Yeah.
So close.
well, and also it's the 90s. Like the whole movie, they were talking about how it's better to be thin. You're never going to find happiness if you're not thin. And that to me felt very 90s. I was like, okay, that is the 90s to a T.
Yeah, I was like, I hate this, but this is like classic.
And then at the end, when he tries to like save it, I think it's Matt Dillon's character tries to like save it.
It bungles it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she clearly has a pattern of disordered eating and probably needs some therapy. But,
Yeah.
and he does not say it in the best way, but his point is that you have always been beautiful. I always thought you were beautiful. You're beautiful because of who you are.
Yeah.
Then she's into it. But like, it's a last ditch Hail Mary at the end for a lot of rough fat shaming through the entire movie. Yeah, a little too late.
It is really like, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes of fat shaming for a 5-minute. No, you're actually prettier at whatever weight you want to be because I like who you are as a person, which is great. And I was shocked that we got that message in the 90s, but
Yeah.
It's called negging, Todd.
is it the opposite of negging though? Because it's a compliment?
No, you have to neg first and then compliment.
Well, he was like, why'd you lose the weight? You were beautiful. I mean, you are also still beautiful, but like,
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, duh.
I mean, I just had a lot of respect that he went back to his hometown and went to fuck the teacher he always had a crush on.
Well, it does establish that she was a student teacher, which would have meant they were closer in age, but it's still dicey.
Now we're in my wheelhouse. I had a crush on a TA in college.
That's fair game, I think. I had a crush on a TA in college.
Then I told her I loved her at a bar when I was drunk, and I
Oh,
ruined
no.
Mikey, you moron! Tell me how that went. I want to know everything, please.
She,
Wait. Can we act it out? I'll be her.
hey, I forgot her name. I think it was like,
You forgot her name! You told her you loved her, and you have already forgotten. Sorry, you've already forgotten my name.
I feel terrible because I'm thinking about the TA I had a crush on, and I'm trying to, I think I know his name. Not 100%.
I was 18 or 19. So I was like, I'm at a bar. I'm kind of drunk. And I was like, you're the TA at my psych class, blah, blah, blah. I love you.
Oh, that can't have gone well. That cannot have gone well.
She blushed and smiled and ignored me for the rest of the semester.
And failed you.
I had a crush on my art history TA, and I believe, if memory serves, his name was Tim? And we walked around a museum together with an art exhibit, almost like a fake natural history museum of an exhibit on feral children. And I was fascinated by it. And he was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, yeah. And then I found out later he had a girlfriend. And I was like, well, it was fun to walk around that museum that one time.
Basically the same story as mine.
Except she didn't embarrass herself while intoxicated around him. Yes.
No. But we did also get to go to one of my favorite museum exhibits I've ever been to, which was, it was called The Birth of Cool. And it was
footage of Chester Cheeto being birthed out of
It's not easy being cheesy.
it was designed from the late 30s to the early 70s. Basically everything from cars, spacecraft to like home appliances. So they had like a house built in the style of that period. They had a whole bunch of like the James Bond cars, but it was almost this
like
idea
modernism,
of
like just like a
Yes.
big exhibit on modernism. I love modernism. It took me a long time to understand postmodernism as like a concept. Postmodernism is like the failure of technology to make our lives better.
Yes.
And I think it took me a long time, but I very much understand the last 20 years of my life is postmodern.
This is postmodern.
I have a slightly more on topic with the movie.
Sure.
And I have a confession to make. I have an undying hatred for Matt Dillon.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay. Can I ask why?
I do not like him in movies. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, I dislike Matt Dillon. The only movie,
When did this start?
like as a child,
Really?
I've just not liked him in any movie.
And how did that make you feel?
He was in The Outsiders, right?
Yes, he is in The Outside.
That's the only movie I liked him in. And then like anytime he shows up, I'm like, oh, Matt Dillon.
Okay, that's a weird take. Although I have a very similar thing with Joan Cusack.
Which I don't understand because I
You
love
hate
her.
Joan Cusack?
I actively dislike her in pretty much everything I see her in. I love her in this movie.
I think this is the perfect amount of Joan Cusack.
Yes.
I think if we went a little bit more, I could have got there.
Yeah.
I love Joan Cusack.
And you hated her in this movie. Oh, sorry.
No, I really loved her in this movie.
No, she is great in this movie.
I felt for her so much.
Yeah.
No, one of my favorites is School of Rock. I think she's very funny in School of Rock.
I think she's better the more reserved she plays. But I mean, my favorite movie of hers is Robin Williams' Toys.
That movie is bonkers. That movie is so crazy.
No joke. I had this conversation with Natalie before we started recording, and I said, I think I hate her because of Toys.
That movie was ahead of its time.
No, that movie was terrible.
I love that movie. It is so stupid in all the right ways.
I could see early 90s Mikey like loving watching this movie while playing with his G.I. Joes.
Which brings me on to my second confession about this movie.
Oh, okay.
So my privileged little self had HBO as a child.
Oh, wow.
And they played In and Out on HBO all the time.
Okay.
And I hated it as a kid because I was like, this movie's boring. And so I wanted Toys. I didn't want In and Out. This was the first time I actually enjoyed it.
When he said that, he sounded like a 7-year-old. I wanted Toys, not In and Out.
See, I feel like Toys is just the craziest parts of Halloween 3 without the drunkenness of Dr. Dan Chalice.
And you do need a drunk doctor banging someone half his age to hold a movie like Toys together.
yes, it needs Tom Atkins.
It does.
No, just Dr. Dan Chalice. Like, that's the unofficial sequel. He's like, I'm going out west to find the toy store. The toy factory.
Okay, so was this the first time either of you had seen this? Well, Mikey, you just said you saw it as a kid. Paige, have you seen it before?
This was my first time
Oh,
seeing
no
this
shit.
film.
So what was your first impression?
I loved it.
Yes!
Now, here's the thing. I fully understand. There are parts of this movie that do not hold up.
Sure.
There are homophobic aspects. There are problematic aspects. There is an undercurrent of a character having a very, very visible eating disorder and people mocking it. Like, it's really not great.
You mean my favorite running joke in the movie?
It's not even just her. They say horrible things to the model too. Like there's a lot going on that doesn't hold up. But what I do love about this movie, it has zero pacing issues for sure. This movie comes in at a quick 91 minutes and it is amazing. But
It is.
it has such a voice. Oh my God. The writing in this movie is phenomenal. Everything they make fun of about Hollywood is perfectly true back then, but still true today. and I was rolling because there's so much about this movie that's said within the movie completely earnest, but is definitely meant to be a tongue-in-cheek indictment of the way people treated other people in general, but specifically treated gay people in the 90s,
Yeah.
to the point where I found myself wondering, what was it like to watch this in the 90s?
Oh,
I
shit.
can't even imagine. Like, it's so ahead of its time.
It's so ahead of its. I feel like it must have been a completely different viewing experience for LGBTQ people versus straight people, because I feel like straight people in the 90s would have seen this and half the jokes are over their head. I feel like now, watching this, looking back, knowing what the 90s were like, knowing what people went through,
Yeah.
and having a better concept of what both being gay means in society and just kind of what that experience might be like, because now it's still not great, but normalized to a degree that they could have probably never imagined in the 90s. And so watching it today, there are so many digs at society at the time, and so many jokes that are played as like, we're playing this as if it's hyperbolic, but things are this bad. And so it's weird that, like, in some ways this movie aged really badly, because there are still, you know, the whole section of that man tape that he's listening to, while a very funny concept, is just stereotypes on stun. And the idea that the stereotypes are what make a person gay or not is problematic to me, and I don't love it. But some of the outside, like the scene where he's opening the door to the classroom, and every time he opens it, they're shouting out a new talking point, is so funny to me. Because they're saying crazy things.
Yes, they
and
are.
I'm like, in 2022, that sounds unhinged. But in 1997, those were real headlines.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, this movie ages amazing because it is a lot funnier now. But there are still parts of it that are problematic that you kind of have to reconcile as you watch it.
The thing I found the most interesting watching it, one, is that I actually paid attention because I wasn't a child. And I thought it was very, very good. And it was very, like, light and fluffy. And it dealt with the content in a really, like, soft and gentle way, but also being, like, poignant and fun. And, like, there's some troubling things said, but they like weave it, like they like weave the line where, like, you're like, oh, this is awful, but, like, also adorable, like, you know, like him listening to that record. And I was just like, because he's unabashedly having fun, and then I was like, is Kevin Kline gay? I just don't even know.
Oh, okay. We can talk about it now, or we can talk about it in fun facts. Do we want to talk about it?
I need to know.
I know already because I am
Todd said I could not
legitimately-
Google it until now.
Because Mikey asked last night, and I was like, do me a favor, don't Google it. Because I'm obsessed with Kevin Kline. Like, I love
Right.
Kevin Kline. So I know the answer to this. But Paige, if you want to talk about it.
Jump on in if you want to go, and I will add to it what I know. But I assume we know the same.
I'd imagine so. Phoebe Cates and Kevin Kline have been married since the 80s. And when they first started dating, they met on, like, a set, I think. I'm not sure it was a movie.
They met
of them
at
were
an
doing.
audition.
It was an audition.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And she thought he was gay. Just straight up thought he was gay. He asked her out, and she was like, oh, he just wants to be friends.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
on that date, he was like, no, I thought this was a date because you're beautiful
Yeah.
and you're fun and I want to date you. And she's like, oh, cool. Well, then let's date like that. But, like, I think it's very funny that she sort of went through the same, or, like, it's the opposite of this movie in my mind. And I think that's very funny.
Now, that is something and again, it's one of those things where it is, you do have to remember, it is the 90s. If we made this movie in 2022, it would be a gay actor. And
It
that I would
certainly
feel
would be,
better
yeah.
about that, because there's almost no gay actors in it, and that's a problem.
Is it Joan Cusack gay?
Oh,
No,
what?
I don't think so.
No, she married Richard Burke.
I don't know a lot about celebrities.
Clearly.
Fun little tie-in, though. Richard Burke is the name of Tom Selleck's character in Friends.
Yes, it is. Anyway, there's not really gay people in this movie, and that is a huge problem with it.
Yeah.
But made today, if we were remaking this, I think you would have a lot of people in it. But there are a number of articles where Kevin Kline has talked about questioning himself based on what his wife said, where she was like, I thought you were gay. And he's
Yeah.
like, am I?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting part of this movie, to kind of check in with yourself sometimes and be like, am I?
In his defense, Phoebe Cates' pretty strong universal appeal.
Oh, I mean, Phoebe Cates was and still is gorgeous.
I looked up, because I was kind of digging into this earlier. I looked up, modern, like current photos of them, interviews of them or whatever. She hasn't aged a damn day.
Yeah.
And he has definitely aged. And so there's like pictures of them like hanging out at like professional basketball games and stuff like that. And
Oh my
like
God. I just Googled
Did
it.
you look it up? there's like 16 years between them, but she's easily in her 50s and she looks like 26. It is wild. We have the same curse. I mean, blessing.
I mean, but he is in his 70s now. I mean, when he filmed this movie, he was either 49 or 50 years old.
He looks great in this movie.
He does.
Too.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
I honestly feel like Kevin Kline is perfect in this movie, but I say that about every Kevin Kline performance in every Kevin Kline movie. Like, I watched this. I was supposed to come home last night from Rhode Island, and my flight got canceled due to weather. So I watched this on my iPad in the hotel room, and then immediately after this, I watched Pirates of Penzance. Like, that's the kind of Kevin Kline fan that I am.
Well, when Mikey asked us last night, is Kevin Kline gay? I immediately pictured him in Pirates of Penzance, and I was like, I don't know. I think I have to Google this. Which is a horrible stereotype, just like this movie does.
I need to point out that in Pirates of Penzance, the Pirate King kisses every woman on stage.
Doesn't mean anything.
Just saying.
Stage kisses aren't real kisses.
That's
Well,
true.
that lowers my numbers quite a bit then.
Well, okay, Todd, any kiss where it's an activity where 7 or more guys are together with you on that date is not a date.
Oh, I mean, we're still talking about Rachel, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about kissing the other guys, and I was like, I don't know, maybe you might have discovered
I'm
things
talking about my
yourself,
date
Todd.
with Rachel. And when I say date, I mean like quote unquote date. But if we had kissed, it would have gone very badly for me, I'm sure.
I think you mean Rachel, my favorite professional interview.
I'm trying to think if just because in this movie kissing Tom Selleck is kind of what like triggers things for him. And I was like, I'm trying to think if I've kissed a girl outside of like a stage thing.
But Tom Selleck's kind of like the male Phoebe Cates, you know? Like,
I mean, you're not wrong. Tom Selleck can fucking get it.
if Tom Selleck kissed me in the 90s, I'd be like, well, one, he'd be a pedophile.
But like you now, kissing 90s Tom Selleck, that's okay.
Yeah, I would be like, oh, I'm not, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Tom
maybe.
Selleck, man, he's rich.
Can I just say about that kiss scene when Kevin Kline pops his leg, like literally like kicks the leg up like you see in like every romantic comedy at the end when the men, when like the couple kisses, and then like throws his leg around Tom Selleck.
I died.
I loved it. So funny.
It was so funny.
I'm so glad you like this movie, Paige. And I'm thrilled really at how well it held up. I won't say it held up amazingly.
Oh, it's definitely got troubling elements.
Sure. But when you we're watching a 90s rom-com that focuses on a gay character, that is like a minefield of problematic shit, and it manages to avoid a lot of it.
It holds up better than most straight rom-coms we've done from the same time period.
It does.
As far as offensiveness.
Here's what I will say. We've done a number of 90s rom-coms on this show.
Yeah.
And straight 90s rom-coms are also fucking terrifying and problematic.
No, absolutely,
so the fact that this was about as problematic as some of those, I was like, I mean, that makes sense. It was the 90s.
Less than in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So do you guys just want to get into the movie so we can talk about it scene by scene?
Yes.
Let's do it.
So we open on kind of shots of their little town, Greenfield, Indiana, kind of like through the town with credits over it, which is kind of nice, kind of establishing.
Yeah.
But this is also where I found out that this movie was directed by Frank fucking Oz.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He played Yoda.
Famous Star Wars puppeteer Frank Oz.
Honestly, Paige, he's directed a bunch of shit.
This is how I found out that he directed a bunch of shit. And I was like, he's puppeted these movies to success.
He is the puppet master. Although, and Paige, he did start out like in puppet movies, like directing puppet
100%.
movies. Like he did The Dark Crystal, he did The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yes.
So like he did like a bunch of shit that was puppet based. I love Frank Oz too. I think he's great. And he also is an actor. Like, I don't know. He's pretty great.
Yeah. Every time someone brings up Frank Oz, I am reminded of a Jason Mantzoukas quote from a How Did This Get Made festival where he just said everyone in this movie is a pile of trash bags rolling around on a dolly and puppeted by Frank Oz. And I do not for the life of me remember what movie it was. I know he was talking about Nicole Kidman, but I don't remember what movie.
That's awesome.
Is it Far and Away?
No, I don't think so.
God, we got to do Far and Away. Okay. It was also written by Paul Rudnick, who wrote Sister Act 2. Like, he wrote a bunch of great, 90s movies.
Neither of the Sister Acts are romantic comedies,
They're
technically, but they are some of my favorite movies. And we talked about that on Black Card Rehab, and I hadn't watched the first Sister Act in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And forgot that it was
the
a
best
fucking crime drama.
Yes, it is. Peyton. That's why she goes undercover.
That's why she goes undercover.
Yes.
Oh.
The fact that Sister Act was not called Undercover is, I think, the only wrong thing Paul Rudnick has ever done.
I mean, for me, this is a stellar track record. And also, the Sister Act movies are also funnier than you remember them being. Like, watch them back now, and they are also kind of ahead of their time to a degree.
Well, I mean, also, we were children. I think some of those comedies
Yeah,
had
that
to be
too.
better as adults.
I'm sure that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I'm like, that lady's pretending to be a nun. Hilarious.
Anyway, so this is where we first meet Kevin Kline's character, Mr. Brackett, and he's in class, and his students are asking him about a famous student he had, Cameron Drake, who is now, we find out, nominated for an Oscar.
And it's Matt Dillon who is Cameron Drake. You know, the guy Mikey loves.
It's Matt Dillon, and we'll get this out of the way early. This is based on something that happened at the 66th Academy Awards where Tom Hanks accidentally outed his former teacher.
Yeah.
In very much this same fashion. And it did not go great.
Yeah, what happened to that guy's life?
Basically what happened to this guy's life, kind of.
That's terrible.
I know this movie plays it as fun, but it's pretty terrible. But this movie portrays it as the 68th Academy Awards, which had just happened when this movie came out. And so Matt Dillon and his entire outfit and demeanor and answers in this movie are modeled exactly after Brad Pitt's at the 68th Academy Awards. Same outfit, same everything, same haircut, you name it.
I love everything about that.
Did the guy who got outed by Tom Hanks get money for this movie being made?
Oh, I'm sure he did not.
Yeah.
Because enough information was changed so that it's not actually his name. But
That makes me doubly sad.
Raleigh Farnsworth was the teacher's name.
Wait, Farnsworth?
Yeah.
Like the inventor of TV, Farnsworth?
No, I mean, I'm sure it's not the same guy. But
Well, yeah. I mean, Philo Farnsworth invented the TV.
Yeah. So Raleigh was okay with it eventually, but it was not an easy transition. Essentially, people have said that he was kind of like dragged out of the closet. He was not publicly out. It was a little different than this movie. He wasn't like about to be married or whatever.
Okay.
But he was not openly out.
We talked a little bit about this story because I knew like very high level. So we talked a little bit about it on last week's episode. We were doing this movie, but I didn't realize that he wasn't out. Like I didn't know any of that stuff. That's wild. And that's honestly tragic on some level. I'm sure Tom Hanks felt terrible about that.
So, okay, Raleigh Farnsworth has spoken about this publicly.
Oh, cool.
And he says that Tom Hanks actually called him a few days before the Oscars and was like, I was one of your students. I don't know if you remember me, but I would like to talk about you in my Oscar speech. But he doesn't know what Tom Hanks is going to say. And he he wasn't necessarily familiar with the movie or whatever. He says it was overwhelming and he had kept his homosexuality private for years. But he was then contacted by the San Francisco Chronicle and basically asked if he would reveal, if he would come out for the article. And at the time he had been retired from teaching for 12 years. And so he decided that, what harm could it do? Basically, it couldn't ruin his teaching career. And he was 69 at the time.
Nice.
And so he decided to come out at that point. But it is a little unfortunate that that choice was not just his. He was kind of pushed by circumstances into doing
That sucks. I wonder if Tom Hanks ever called to apologize or anything.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently they have discussed it since then. And Farnsworth is kind of like, this isn't how I would have planned this, but we cool, but yeah.
I mean, it's nice that he called to apologize or they worked it out, or whatever. But like,
Right.
I hope he wrote him a check.
Yeah.
Anyway, we cut to after class, Kevin Kline's character meets with a student in the hallway, and the student has an acceptance letter from a college. He has him open it, and he did get in, full ride scholarship. They're super excited. And from there, they go to practice because I think he's the football coach, basketball coach.
I don't think we ever see them playing a sport.
Sports.
Yeah.
Coach.
He's definitely a sports ball coach for sure.
Sports ball. And all of his students are like, hey, we were going to have practice, but instead you're getting married. So they like shower him in champagne. And I'm like, where did these teenagers get all this alcohol?
Yeah, I know,
like,
right?
In a school.
The 90s was awesome.
But we cut to Joan Cusack doing her final fitting for her wedding dress. And it is very of the time. This dress, my aunt, her first wedding was around this time. And it was basically the same shape, but it was satin instead of tulle.
Okay.
And instead of having all of the applique, but it was the same cut. And so when she walks out in it, I was like, oh my God, it was my aunt's dress.
Is it weird that Kevin Kline is there to see it?
Yes and no. So,
Okay.
I mean, some people choose to have their groom involved. It's always interesting on bride dress TV shows when a groom is involved. Jake chose not to be involved. I also didn't invite him. In part because for me, I'm like, I dress for me. I wear the things that I want to wear because I think they look cool, and everyone, I guess, can say shit, but I don't really care. It's my body. And I thought that it might just be an extra bit of noise in me trying to choose the thing that I wanted.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But also
Absolutely.
he wanted to be surprised. But it's not the craziest thing in the world for someone to be there.
Okay. I thought it was like a bad luck thing. I honestly.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, traditionally, they don't see the dress till the wedding.
That's what I thought, yeah. But I mean, like, if my future wife wanted me to see the wedding dress she picked out or whatever and get my feedback, I would be open to that. But I also, like, don't need to do that. Like, because I'm not
Yeah.
going to have an educated opinion on it.
I feel like most men I have spoken to in that position are like, she is beautiful in anything, and
Yeah.
anything she would pick would be great.
Absolutely.
So,
Except that. Go get another dress.
well, and it does say in the scene that he helped pick her dress.
Yeah,
Which
it does.
that, I was like, I've heard of this happening a few times, but like, that is unusual, but okay. And this is where we meet her or his mom, because she has no parents. She's an orphan. But his mom, who's played by Debbie Reynolds.
Yes.
And she is one of my favorite characters in this movie because she's completely unhinged. All she wants is this wedding. It's all she wants in her entire life.
Yeah.
And it's so bonkers.
And I love her too. And I also love the dad is played by Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley, yeah.
And he's great in this movie. I mean, so is the mom. So is Debbie Reynolds. She's great in this movie too.
Yeah.
But like Bob Newhart's in this movie. Like there's a bunch of big name people in this. Even the kids are like, oh, I recognize that person. This is just like a super young version of themselves.
Right. So this is also where we find out that Joan Cusack's character, Emily, has worked incredibly hard to lose 75 pounds, which is a significant amount of weight. That's a lot
of weight.
Yeah.
I
That was a
lost
lot.
a lot of weight once, and it was hard.
I mean, that's a whole hell of a lot. And she did it via Richard Simmons.
Yeah.
Which, as a fat child at the time that this movie was out, I am also very familiar with Richard Simmons' catalog of films.
Films? You're calling them films now, Paige?
I'm going to call them films.
Okay.
Film.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweating with the oldies.
I didn't realize they had a narrative.
No, they don't. But I'll be honest with you. Have either of you done Sweating with the Oldies?
No, I have not. I'm sorry.
You mean going to the beach with old people? Yes.
Yes. So, and here's the thing. I am not advocating for fat shaming your children. I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is those workouts are the most fun I've ever had exercising ever.
Okay.
Because he's literally just screaming while Diana Ross plays and you're just kind of dancing. And it's the best. And I've been trying to find like a streaming version or a DVD, and they're like really hard to find because he like doesn't license them and stuff. But you used to be able to take his class in person in LA, and I have a few friends who've done it, and they're like, it's the most wild, unhinged, insane fitness brunch madness you've ever
Brunch.
seen.
That does not surprise me at all.
And so, like, not even to lose weight. I just want to dance and scream in my living room. So if you have the hookup somehow for a modern version of Dancing with the Oldies, hit your girl up. I'm trying to find it. So we cut to him buying his suit. Wilford Brimley's there. His brother's trying on like a powder blue tux.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
Is his brother cognitively disabled?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The way things are going now is that everything's on a spectrum. You know, like you can have a little of this or, you know, a lot of something.
Yeah.
But I don't think so, no.
No, I think he's just odd.
Yeah, like any small town.
Okay.
They're all kind of like him.
Yeah, well, and especially because he seems to have his own job and his own stuff. He just seems to be kind of dumb, but not like
No,
like
yeah.
just like not societally aware, you know, or whatever. Dumb is the worst word. I'm so sorry, but just like a dude who's maybe not as, you know, savvy with the ladies and doesn't know how to pick out clothes, but
Wait a
he's
minute.
just a nice guy who
Hold on a
like is
second.
also a therapist and like saves people's lives.
I honestly wondered if he had like a head accident, like he was in a car
You mean a
wreck.
head
or,
injury?
Yes.
Yeah, his head peed his pants.
He's wearing a hat like the entire movie. So I thought like maybe he had like a steel plate in his head or something like.
So to me, the words head accident are like violently terrifying.
I cannot tell you how hard I would have laughed if at some point in this movie he took off his hat and there was just like half a railroad spike sticking out of it or something.
Exactly,
Just-
Paige. Yes.
Just like not even addressed. They're just like, yeah, that's his spike. And I was just like,
Like the guy from Happy Gilmore with a nail in his head.
like mom's plate and Pete and Pete. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
All right, well, let's move on. I mean, I'm not saying that his suit choice is the reason I thought that, but it did like lean me in
Fuel
that
to the
direction.
fire.
Yeah.
I like how Todd's like, moving on. But wait, first,
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
move on.
You know the like saw blades from like a circular saw? Just like one of those.
That's, I think, what I swallowed and why my voice sounds like shit today.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we cut to what I think is their rehearsal dinner.
That would make sense. Although the rehearsal dinner is usually like the night before, but I mean, it depends on venue and stuff like that. It's all up in the air.
And we know that this is only like 3 or 4 days before the wedding. So
Every dinner for me is rehearsal for the real dinner.
you're just like stretching it out.
Yeah, I'm preparing for like a real dinner sometimes. So every dinner is rehearsal. You gotta be on your game.
Okay.
I actually refer to lunch as my rehearsal dinner every day.
That's a better way to put that.
You know, in French, breakfast is petit déjeuner and lunch is déjeuner. So it's almost like breakfast is little lunch.
I don't want any petite meals. No, sir.
It's just the idea that like it's your little lunch, and I've always loved that.
My little lunch is what I eat in the car on the way to lunch.
It's 11sies.
You
Yeah.
guys want to see my little lunch?
No.
I feel like this is a trap.
You guys want to eat my little lunch?
Mikey, I don't think you can eat vitamin water.
Can if you add gelatin to it,
Okay, well, I can tell this is gonna be one of those episodes.
where you try to make jokes and fail. How
Yeah.
them bread puns coming?
Guess what, listeners? Solid D. Oh, let's not do D. Solid F.
That's right, ladies. Mikey's always bringing that solid D.
He feels like he's bringing the pain, but like like bread, like the French word for bread. Pain.
Oh, man. Now you're not able to do bread
Who
puns. What is
that
happening?
joke for? Who is that?
It's a bread pun.
That is a French bread pun for like what, the 4 exchange students who went to Paris?
We have listeners in France and maybe Canada. We have listeners, you just don't know about them. They live in Canada.
I met them at camp, Mikey.
They're French Canadian, and I met them at summer camp.
Yeah, exactly. It's honestly just for Armando when he gets back from France and he just like really inhabits the culture. I cannot wait to see him in a beret. Like that is like the thing I'm looking forward to most.
Here's the thing. I've been to France and I think he may not like it. And
Paige,
so I'm just kind of waiting to hear back.
it's like internationally known that no one likes it.
No, that's not true.
I mean, Paris.
Paris is kind of gross.
There are a few places I want to go in France, but I'm not like it's not top of my list of places I want to visit.
Well, I have to go to Paris, and I have to go to France.
Because you want to see someone's underpants?
That's all I got. This is the solid D game coming at you.
You're just mad that we didn't baguette your jokes earlier.
Oh, shit. Paige. Hell yeah.
Well, I'm going to French dip out of this episode.
You did it. Mikey.
You did it.
I made a bread pun.
That's more of a sandwich pun than a bread pun.
I don't eat bread by itself usually.
You can't be part of our club sandwich. We're funnier than you'll ever be, LT.
I think you really crossed the Maginot line there.
The Maginot line? Really?
Fuck.
Do you know what the Maginot line
That's all
is,
I got.
Mikey?
I can't believe that you said that we didn't croissant the Maginot line.
The Maginot Line is a bunch of fortifications between France and Germany that France thought would stop the Germans in World War II, but they blitzkrieged over it, and then they were like, fucked.
Do you know how they got over the Maginot Line so easily?
Planes.
Yeah, because planes were invented after they started building the Maginot Line. Yeah.
But back then, planes were invented, so they didn't know, you know?
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
They're like, man, this took us 20 years. They look up and they're like, oh, what the fuck is that? Oh, shit.
it literally bankrupted the country of France to build this like insanely amazing fortification that the Nazis beat with a plane.
More than one, probably.
Well, yeah. The plane, I should say.
What if it was just one giant plane?
It's the Spruce Goose. Are you guys getting these World War II profiteering jokes, or should we move on?
Should move on. Anyway, so they're at their rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
They French fried
No.
right over that line. God, D game.
I like that earlier you were like, I couldn't do stand up, I can only do puns, and now can't even do puns.
My whole stand-up routine will be me failing to do puns for 5 minutes.
Honestly, I'd probably laugh at that,
Painful.
though.
Well, it depends, because if you can, at first it'll be really rough, but if you can stay failing long enough, sometimes it comes around to be funny that it's going so bad.
You two have been a really grating audience. Only one person would laugh at my stand-up routine in his page. She would just be head in hand.
And I'd just be sad about the failure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he kind of gives a toast and is joking about how they've been engaged for like 3 years, but he said that he wouldn't marry her until this student got nominated, and lo and behold, he did. I thought I'd be safe for the rest of my life, which is kind of a funny joke.
I thought it was, yeah.
Basically at the expense of the student to just be like, I never thought he was good enough, but I guess I gotta get married now.
And unfortunately, he heard it and planned to out him later that night because of this joke.
That motherfucker. So after this kind of rehearsal, dinner, engagement party, whatever, everyone kind of goes back to their respective houses to watch the Oscars because they know the guy that's up for an award.
Yeah, he's from their hometown.
He's from their hometown, and by all accounts is actually kind of a nice dude. Like, they play him in these early scenes as being a total asshole, but then he comes back later and he's actually kind of cool.
I think he plays sort of like an asshole, but he really is just dumb.
Well, I don't even know that it's dumb so much as disliking the Hollywood machine.
Oh, that could be true too. Yeah. I sort of, maybe not dumb, but like aloof, maybe.
Aloof is a good word for it.
Do you guys think I'm aloof of bread? Yes!
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
Vindication!
Mikey, you're back, baby.
I've only read that word.
Did you say he's only bred that word? I fucking love this so much.
I feel so much better. I felt like a pod failure since my best friend's wedding.
Well, that was a long time ago, my man.
I know.
Jake is making bread in the kitchen right now. Aloof of bread. It's so stupid. It should make me laugh this hard.
She's gone. She's gone.
Yeah, she's done.
Fucking God.
Like, she's red. Like, she is so... I've never seen Paige this red. It's amazing.
I'm crying. I'm laughing at her laugh at aloof of bread.
No, I know. Same. Mikey, same.
It's just so stupid.
Well, that brings me to my second joke page.
No.
Earlier, I took a shower and I used
Alofa.
a loofah of bread. Thank you, Paige. Good night. That's my type 5 for bread puns.
don't think you know what a tight five is.
It's my favorite.
Oh, I was going to say a tight five is the best you could hope for on the apps. I'm sorry. This is really dumb.
You can't
You know
recover.
when you hear something so stupid that your brain just can't quite wrap itself around it?
Yeah.
I would like to put that on the DVD of my comedy special.
Funnier than a loofah of bread.
No. When you hear something so stupid, your brain can't wrap all the way around it.
But it's just a picture of Mikey in the shower, like scrubbing himself with a loaf of bread.
with the overlay of like that meme of that woman who's like thinking about all the equations. Ugh. Okay. Anyway, so they're all watching the Oscars. And I do like that they're passing around scorecards and talking about like, what do you have for best documentary? I don't have either of you been to an Oscar party where people have done it? It's super fun.
It is a lot of fun, yeah.
I used to be more into it like 10, 15 years ago.
It's weird now because the Academy seems so out of touch. And I think there was a time when it felt a little more in step with what people had seen. And now it's just really racist and disjointed. And, you know, so now it's less fun. But in the past, that for me is one of the only bearable ways to watch the Oscars is scoring and seeing who's, you know, got whatever. But as they're kind of going through this, they're cutting back and forth between Inside Entertainment, outside the Oscars, with Peter Malloy, who is Tom Selleck's character, and he's interviewing Whoopi Goldberg, and then he's interviewing Cameron Drake, who is Matt Dillon's character, and he has as his date one of the models from Head Over Heels. Because, by the way, the models from Head Over Heels have been in more movies on our show than anyone else.
I love that.
Like,
that's like the best fun fact ever.
It keeps on giving. It's really funny. But he basically is like, awards are meaningless. Artists shouldn't compete. We should just do our art. And they're like, then why are you here? And he's like, in case I win, duh. Which I kind of like get. Like it's kind of a douchey thing to say, but it's also pretty funny.
It's also super honest. Like, I agree. Yeah. I think the Oscars are sort of dumb. I feel like they're very out of touch. If I was ever nominated for one, I would definitely go.
Yeah, you're like, just in case I win.
Yeah, you always go to, like free food and...
They don't feed you at the Oscars. You go to after parties, and it's where the food is, and the one that you want to go to is the governor's party. I just checked to see who the governor was at the time, and it was Pete Wilson, which is underwhelming, because no less than 6 years later, if you had gone to the governor's party, it would have been Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, remember when California had the Terminator as a governor, and he was not as bad as some other governors.
Yeah.
It's wild. Time is crazy. It's a flat circle.
Like a tortilla.
Yes.
That bread pun didn't do as well.
It wasn't a pun. It was just a fact.
Yeah. You just dropped a statement and then said it was a pun. And Paige is losing her mind about how dumb you are right now. That's so funny.
I'm not dumb. I'm a loaf.
God, I hate you.
Yeah, you have about the same brain activity as a loaf of bread.
That I agree with.
Am I like a thick, doughy bread or like a light and flaky one?
I think you know the answer to this, and you don't need me to hurt you.
I'm going to take the BuzzFeed quiz. What bread am I?
Hang on.
Okay, we're all doing it.
I honestly feel like we did this already. All right, what did you get, Paige?
Marble rye.
That's
and
what I got.
I'm okay with that. I'm pretty okay with marble rye.
Oh my God. I don't want to talk about what I got.
What'd you get, Mikey?
You need to.
I got vegan biscuits.
Mikey, it's now all you can ever talk about because it's vegan.
You're pretty straightforward and like to keep things simple. You aren't all that into complicated ingredients like yeast.
It's because you're a loaf.
Hey, maybe we should talk about the actual movie, though.
Yeah, because we're like an hour in and we've barely touched this movie.
Scene 2, the Oscars.
Scene 2, the Oscars. The Oscar scenes are some of my favorite parts of this movie because they are so tongue-in-cheek, where they cut to him for Best Actor and they're smoking in the audience, which is hysterical. But also the scenes they show from the movie that he is nominated for.
Oh my God.
So hysterical too, because it's clearly making fun of the way that Hollywood makes movies about gay people and portrays gay people in movies.
Yes.
Where it's this idea of like, it's an easy way for a straight guy to get an Oscar, but it's also not grounded in any sort of reality to what those relationships are like, where it's this whole thing of like, you know, do you love me as a friend or another way? Another way. Like a brother? No, another way. Like a pen pal? My legs hurt. Like, it's bonkers. And they kind of end it with almost like a Lieutenant Dan kind of like, you know, the lover that he saved now has no legs and he's being court-martialed. And the things that they have as air quotes proof of him being gay in this movie is like a romantic letter, a picture of Danny from San Francisco, and then an autographed copy of Beaches. And the amount of like both Bette Midler and Barbara Streisand being like a red flag for gayness in this movie is both problematic and hilarious at the same time.
I did think it was funny too. I mean, the movie seemed to me like a spoof of Born on the 4th of July.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like that, then mixed with Forrest Gump a little bit. Although I think Forrest Gump came out maybe around the same time as I honestly don't know. But
I think it came out in 99.
Yeah.
So it was out. Then that would have been after this. But I do love that, like when they're court-martialing him and they're naming all those things, like the letter to a friend and the other thing. He's like, okay, and then he says the thing about Bette Midler. He's like, give that back.
I'm not ashamed. Yeah.
And then when it cuts to the guy like banging the gavel, it says discharge, dishonorable, and then it cuts to his family and the quote unquote like boyfriend character he saved in war who now has no legs.
Has no legs.
Yeah, you see his mom and his dad, and his mom is holding an apple pie in her lap.
Yes.
And I thought that was so fucking funny. It's so ridiculous that she brought an apple pie to her kid's court-martial.
Well, and then also, then it cuts to them talking to a statue of like, am I a true American? And then Danny, his like lover's like, dude, that's a statue.
It's a good thing you're hot because you're an idiot.
It reminded me of some of the scenes in, and I know this is another very problematic film, Tropic Thunder.
Yes.
Where they're like, it's this idea of like, to get an Oscar, you must portray something that you're not instead of portraying the reality of someone in that circumstance or having an actor that actually represents that, portray that circumstance. But
yeah.
Anyway, he also, after he talks to the statue, he's like, I'm moving on into the future, and then leaves his lover in the wheelchair at the top of the stairs and he can't get down. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. This is terrible. But it is, I feel like this is meant to spoof the way that Hollywood treats gay stories. 100%.
Yeah, 100% agree.
But then they read off the rest of the nominees, which is hysterical in its own right. Starting with Paul Newman nominated for Coot. Coot! That's the name of the movie. The funniest one to me, though, was
Steven Seagal?
Michael Douglas.
Oh.
Who, it's Glenn Close announcing it.
Yeah.
So, like, and the movie is called Primary Urges. Instead of, like, oh, God, it escapes me. It's Fatal Attraction, I think is the one that they're both in. But yeah, Primary Urges. And then it's Steven Seagal for Snowball in Hell.
Yeah.
I was dying. I was like, this movie is off to a great start for me.
By the way, ever since I heard the Dollop episodes on Steven Seagal, I refuse to call him Steven Seagal because his name is Steven Seagal.
It's so bonkers.
Yes.
He's left and abandoned so many families. He's been married to like 4 people at the same time.
Yeah, dude is setting up franchises, allegedly.
Dude is wild.
Yeah.
In the worst way. So anyway, Matt Dillon's character wins. He goes up to give his speech and he opens his speech by saying, I'd like to thank my agent and my new agent.
Yeah.
Which, so this is a thing in Hollywood, depending on how long you've had your agent. Like if you are someone who has been nominated a bunch of times, you've had the same agent the whole time, you'll probably just keep your agent. But it is like a running joke that like if you are kind of a newer actor and you get the Oscar, that like the next day you sign with a better agent where it's like you like immediately dump the people that got you there and then you get a new one.
Hell yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
I mean,
we're gonna win an Oscar
and then dump our agents.
Well, we'll have to get an agent and then dump that agent after we win an Oscar, apparently.
Oh man. But yeah, I'd like to thank my agent and my new agent. Very funny.
Yeah.
And then he kind of goes through this whole speech of like, you know, I did this for people who can't date. Like he's just fully does not understand. Like, as a straight person, he does not actually connect with this, and he's kind of very surface level until he gets to like, I want to thank my teacher in high school because he's gay. And again, we flash through all the families watching it, and they're all just like, wait, what? Like, what's happening? And so we cut to Kevin Kline, who turns the television off and then throws the remote out the window. Just immediately.
It's so funny.
Joan Cusack is immediately like, what is he talking about? And Kevin Kline's like, I have no idea. The doorbell rings. His parents are already there. Like, we saw them at another party, but then the doorbell rings seconds later and they are at the door like, is there something you want to tell us? Is it about the wedding?
I loved it so much. Yeah.
And his parents, unfortunately, are not as accepting of this potential news initially. And he does he say like, I'm not, that he's been in Hollywood a long time. Maybe he's on drugs. Who knows? And his mom says, hey, I don't care if you are, if you aren't, if you rob a bank, if you kill someone, if you crash a car, take out a tower and kill a bunch of people. I just need that wedding. Which is such a crazy thing to say.
I just need that sweet, sweet wedding. It is crazy.
Sweet, sweet wedding.
I'll love you no matter what, as long as you get married.
As long as you get married.
It's so bonkers.
And then Wilford Brimley says like,
diabetes.
No, diabetes. His mom says something about like, when they lived here, she wasn't active in the PTA, which means nothing, which is crazy. But then Wilford Brimley's like, he used to mow our lawn. Never again. And I'm like, what? I don't think he wants to. Like, you think he's going to come back and be like, please, let me mow your lawn? Their reactions are crazy.
Yeah.
But essentially, he denies it. They take Joan Cusack home.
Yeah.
The phone rings, and he's immediately having to answer to people like, no, I'm not. I don't know why he said it. Like, I'm not sure. So we cut to the next day as he's riding his bike to school, and the school is surrounded by news cameras, and they just descend on him. Like, do you know Ellen? Like, what's going on? Should gays be allowed to handle fresh produce is one of them. Where you're just like, and here's the terrible part. It sounds crazy now, but in the 90s, people thought that AIDS was transmissible through like touching a toilet seat and stuff.
Touch and spit and all that. Yeah.
So that's why they're like, should they handle fresh produce? Which is an asinine and very offensive question. But now that we know that's not the case, the audacity kind of like gives me surprise laughs a little bit.
I think that question is included here because even in 97, they knew that was ridiculous. But like they're poking fun at all those stupid questions because that shit was like the 80s. Like there were, I remember like,
well, you do know that it was literally as recently as a couple years ago that when you were selling your house, you had to disclose if someone with AIDS had lived in that house.
What?
So
really?
like, it's not even just the 80s. Like it is current. Like, and I mean, literally within like the last like 5 years, basically, like people couldn't give blood and shit.
Yeah. What I mean by the 80s was that's when they weren't sure if it was transmitted, via touch or whatever. Like that was defined and we knew that in the 80s. It was
right.
Anyone who was asking those kind of questions was either like really dumb or hurtful and mean. Like it was like one of two things.
Right. So his students are obviously asking questions and he's like, look, I'm getting married in 3 days. Don't worry about it. And then one of his students is like, well, I could see how he would think that because of all of these stereotypes.
Yeah.
And he's listing out things that have nothing to do with being gay. They just have to do with being well-dressed. It's like, but they can't fathom the mixing of the two.
Yeah. So I love in this scene where they're like, yeah, you're just like really well-dressed and clean. So everyone had questions as to whether you were gay or not.
And I'm here to tell you that I have clean gay friends. I have dirty gay friends. It's a whole spectrum. Truly anyone could be. It has nothing to do with any of this. So the principal comes in, and as he opens the door to the classroom, we get another onslaught of the reporters who are like, gays in the space program. Should we allow lesbians on Mars? Which is bonkers.
We're not going to Mars anytime soon.
It's one of the, and I have no idea why it would matter in the slightest if there were lesbians there. Like, I don't know. And I'm sure that was supposed to be kind of a gays in the military question, but, amped up to 11. But Oh man, I had to pause and laugh at that for a while.
It's very funny.
It's very funny to me. But his principal is talking to him, who's just like, hey, I need you to go call off the dogs. And you need to let them know that you're not gay. So he follows him out to ostensibly go talk to the reporters. We cut to the teacher's lounge, where all the teachers are just like, he clearly likes dick. How did we not know? And it's like, I do. One of them is hold on. Give me just a sec.
Yeah.
Because she is now she's on Succession, and then she was on True Blood for a long time. And I feel like she's one of those actresses who did not get cast in a ton back in the day, and now as an older actress is cast in everything. And I love it. And it was crazy seeing her young here.
Yeah.
Oh, wild. One of the teachers is named Deborah Monk, who was one of my 8th grade teachers. Like that's the name of one of my 8th grade teachers.
Yeah. Deborah Monk is now in the Gilded Age. I don't know. I know who that is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. She's still acting. She's still around.
So J. Smith Cameron is her name. And she has like a bunch of stuff, like smaller roles from a lot of movies in like this era and even like 10 years after. And then she was on...
She plays Jerry in Succession. I know you're talking about.
Yes, Jerry from Succession.
Yeah.
And she's in this, Young and Unknown, and it's wild to see her there. But she was also Sam's mom in True Blood.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, we see her here, and then she ends up being one of the bridesmaids later at the wedding.
Yeah.
And is like the whole time just like, it's not going to work. Like, he likes dick. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so they kind of stop talking as Joan Cusack walks in, and they're just like, oh, nothing. You look great. Like,
yeah.
We definitely weren't talking about you. So we cut back to the students who are all kind of talking about like maybe it's not okay for him to be around us. And this is the conversation about, it's in the locker room, and it's that one student who's like, being gay is only okay in prison and space.
Yeah.
Which is, first of all, wrong, but also a bonkers thing to say.
Yeah.
And his argument for space was because there's zero gravity, so you just slip into people on accident while you sleep, which I'm just like, no, I don't think that's how that works.
This is a high school senior who is both dumb and unaware what sex is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Clearly. So he walks in to try and get them to get dressed for class, and they all kind of immediately cover up. And he's like, look, I'm not, this shouldn't be any different. Is this why you're acting this way? And they're like, no. And we cut to after school, he goes to a diner to eat, and Tom Selleck has followed him there.
Yeah.
And he's trying to avoid him because he's like, I'm just tired of talking about this today. Like,
yeah,
people have been hounding me all day. I'm just trying to live my life. I do love that he's like, hey, everyone else who's trying to get your story is sleazy. And one of the ladies at the counter is like, I don't know. I like Barbara Walters. And he just immediately is like, did she call you?
Did Barbara call you?
Did that bitch call you?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So he ducks out and goes to what turns out to be a surprise bachelor party in a bar.
Oh, man.
I love this scene.
This scene, while heavily stereotypes, makes me laugh so hard. It reminds me of, did both of you see the movie Keanu?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where he introduces the entire gang to George Michael. That's how I felt about this scene, where they're like, we're gonna watch Funny Girl. And he's like, no, like, I'm trying to be straight.
Yeah.
Like, we can't. And they're like,
you guys are letting me down.
Okay, fine. A Star is Born? No. Yentl? And we find out that he basically held a Barbra Streisand film festival, forced all his friends to go watch, and now they're all like, truly, she is a treasure.
I do love that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I like all those movies too. And I'm not gay. Thanks, Mikey. But like, I'm certainly not gay, but like, those movies are pretty excellent.
Well, if I win an Oscar, Todd.
Mikey, I honestly, that's fine. If you out me, I'd be fine with that. It honestly would not change my life at all.
Anyway, so he's kind of arguing with them about it, and then one of them just says, well, Yentl sucks anyway, and they get in a huge old fight, and I love it.
I love that too. And that is his barber, right? And he like gets him in a headlock and rips off his toupee, and I love it so much.
Oh, his barber in this movie cracks me up. He's only in like 3 or 4 scenes, but he chews every single one.
I know, and it's so good.
So we cut to kind of a montage of Tom Selleck interviewing people around town. We start with a Jay Leno joke about Michael Jackson getting married again to Howard Brackett because Jay Leno is notorious for making like tasteless topical jokes on that show in the 90s. Like the things he said about Monica Lewinsky. Holy hell.
Oh,
and the OJ trial. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like and here's the thing. I have met him. He's a nice dude. I feel like looking back, he probably wouldn't have done it. I don't know. Anyway.
It was a different time.
It was a rough time for the media treating people nicely. It was bad. But so he interviews the barber who has a clear toupee. Like that's such an obvious toupee. And I love it.
Yeah.
And the postal worker who I love. The postal worker's like, I can't reveal that, but is this national? Use your full zip code.
By the way, okay, so fun fact about that postal worker, he is in 1776, the musical.
No.
Yes. His name is William Dool, and he's been in a bunch of stuff. He is like a notorious bit part actor from like the 60s. And he just, as he aged, they kept putting him in stuff. Like he's in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. He's in and Out. He's in a bunch of movies, but he actually has a pretty decent sized part in 1776, the musical. And I love him. He plays McNair, who is like the congressional custodian, and he's wonderful.
Anyway, so they interview the students, and the students are like, no, this is a mistake. And they're like, well, if you had anything to say, they would just be like, Greenleaf rules. And then he just finishes it with a community in chaos.
Yeah.
Which is madness. So we cut to Howard, Kevin Kline's character, has a meeting with the principal. And he's like, hey, so graduation's coming up and you've kind of thrust us into the spotlight and people have been calling to ask if you're a homosexual. And, do you enjoy teaching? And he's basically threatening him. And he's like, are you threatening me? And he's like, friends don't threaten. And
They warn.
Yeah, friends warn.
they warn.
Yeah.
But this is a clear threat. And basically the implication is if you get married, you can keep your job.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you're fired.
By the way, this guy's Bob Newhart too. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it
So it stings extra hard.
It does. Yeah, I mean, this is a terrible conversation. It's terrible, but like, I sort of love Bob Newhart, and Bob Newhart is playing it in a very sort of interestingly silly way. So it's like, even though he's having this like what would now be an illegal conversation, until the Supreme Court makes it not illegal.
Only a matter of time.
I think it depends on your state right now.
In some cases, for some stuff, it does.
Well, I mean,
but
Mikey, you and I work in an at-will employment state, so they wouldn't say it's because he's gay to fire him. They would say it's because we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's legal because we're in an at-will state, because we're a Republican-led state, so unions don't exist here. So like the middle class here and like job protections is just fucked for us.
Well, hey, California is an at-will state too.
Yeah.
But California is also really super into protected classes. So he would probably still get fired, but probably for a different reason, like air quotes attendance.
Sure.
But then he would have a lot of grounds to sue and probably would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or people would be too afraid to fire him because of the lawsuits. Anyway, so we cut to, he goes to a confessional to try and kind of ask for guidance. And I think this is really an interesting scene because he hasn't really, so far in the movie, confronted the idea that he might be gay and he might have just not been open with himself about it. He's still in the mode of like, everyone's asking me, should I still get married? Everyone's saying he's gay, but he's not gay, is what he's saying in this scene.
Yeah.
And he kind of gets to the point where he's like, well, we've been together for 3 years and she's so sweet and so thin, which I hated. But he's like, and we don't have a physical relationship. And the priest is like, oh, he's gay. Which again, not an indicator, could be asexual, could have other preferences, whatever.
Or he could just be super religious. Like I know a lot of people who didn't have sex until they got married. Like there's nothing wrong with that inherently. Although I do love that the priest is like, oh, your friend, quote unquote, has got to go smash immediately.
Gotta go find out, basically. So he rushes home and he like pushes her up against the wall, kissing, and he's like, "Who's gay now?" And Richard Simmons is still on the TV.
I do love, he's like, turn that off.
And this scene really makes me sad because this is where she talks about, I transformed myself for you. Like,
Yeah.
I got skinny, but do you want me to start eating again? I will. I'm very fragile. And I was just like, no.
Yeah.
Never. Don't do this for other people. Like this. No, this is not. This is disordered eating and it's not good.
It is not great, right?
He leaves. And a reporter, the reporter, Tom Selleck, almost runs him off the road because he's on his bike. The reporter's in a car. And he basically is like, you're ruining my life. Like, you're turning me into a story. This is terrible. And he's like, well, I'm kind of pushing this story because I am also gay and I'm out. And when I came out, I was so scared of it, but nothing really happened. Like, the people I loved me back, which is great that that was his experience, but you cannot guarantee that someone else's experience should be the same, and you have to let them come out at their own pace if they ever choose to.
Yeah.
Anyway, but as part of trying to convince him that he's gay, he kisses him, and immediately, like, his knees go weak.
Yeah.
He throws a leg around his waist, which is very funny to me.
I love that leg throw, man. It's so funny because he does the leg pop that
So
you see in
funny.
like every rom-com, right? And then he
Right.
does he like throws one leg around him and pulls him in. And we've all like been there either on the pulling or the receiving end of the pull. And it's good either way.
Mikey, have you never had the pull?
Oh, I've had the pull.
Oh, okay. All right.
The pull apart rolls at whatever the restaurant was earlier.
Rafferty's? You mean like
Rafferty's is great.
Rafferty's is barely better than O'Charlie's, Mikey. And you need to admit this.
Again, I have no idea what either of these places are.
They're honestly mediocre restaurants. Like, they're not even good places, Paige.
Oh, man.
But when you come here, we will make you go to Rafferty's and Las Palmas.
But anyway, the pull is what I call first base.
What's your fourth base, sir?
Fourth base is marriage.
Hey, okay, what's second, third, and shortstop?
Pregnancy.
Shortstop is pregnancy.
Yeah.
Home run is splitting the bills.
Home run and fourth are the same. Have you ever thrown a leg?
No.
I've done it and received it. There are times when men got to throw leg, baby. Like, it happens.
If I threw a leg over someone, we would collapse and she would die.
Benefits of being what do you call me? Skinny titty baby bitch?
We're not starting that again. We just got cleared on the Facebook group. We're not a troubled group.
I've had a double leg throw. I was throwing legs because he picked me up by the waist and threw me against a wall. And then you catch with the legs.
My move is a pick up by the waist, walk to the bedroom, toss to the bed.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then I'd shut the door, and then I'd go.
Now think about what you did.
I go get a Frosty.
There's a library in there. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Read a book. Oh, I'm not going to make love with you on the first date. I'm going to eat a Frosty and cool off.
I'm going to kidnap you for 365 days.
Mikey comes back with like a Frosty and like he's dipping fries in it. Like, my grandma thinks I'm attractive. Sorry.
Oh, you're still here?
The weirdest thing to say at that would be like, you come home, you're like, oh, I thought that was a dream.
I've been in here for 4 days. Oh, God. Anyway, so they stop kissing, and he's like, yo, this is not Los Angeles. Like, we can't just kiss out in the open here. And as they're having that conversation, his parents pull up with the wedding cake in the car.
Yes.
Uncovered. Just sitting in the back
And the
seat.
window is down. There's no way that cake is not covered with bugs.
Not just covered with bugs. It's just splattered all over the back. Unless it's a fake cake. It might be a fake cake.
Oh, I'm sure in real life it's a fake cake. Like, it's a set. You know, it's a movie.
Oh, no, but I mean, some people get fake cakes for their wedding because it's cheaper.
What is fondant except crushed bugs?
Grief, persevering. Grief. I don't think fondant tastes that good. Buttercream forever.
Yeah, I hate fondant. I really don't like it.
It's not good.
It's not. I mean, I honestly don't like cake. I will not have, well, we'll have a cake at the wedding, but like, I will not eat it. There's going to be brownies also at the wedding.
I mean, yeah, brownies.
Brownies are way better than cake. Fight me.
Shout out to our sponsor, Publix, for their raspberry celebration cake.
I do love brownies, but I also love cake. But like, I can't recommend enough multiple different kinds of cakes, and don't give a fuck about them being stacked or whatever, because like having different kinds of cake was the best choice I could have made at my wedding.
Yeah.
Because people tried multiple cakes. We had like none left over. It like we had basically the perfect amount, and everyone was raving about it and how much they loved all the cakes. It worked out great.
I'm sure that's true. I just don't like cake. It's not really my favorite thing.
Yeah, I do love brownies though.
They're so good.
You could also stack brownies into tiers.
But then it's just one brownie. That's just one brownie.
You sometimes have like a groom's cake and a like wedding cake. I would have a wedding cake and groom's brownies, and that's what I would eat.
They did have chili at our wedding, and my sister ate it out of a coffee mug on the dance floor. Was just like on the dance floor with a coffee mug full of chili.
You have never mentioned your family. Like, it's never not made me love them more. Every time you mention your family, I'm like, fuck, I love everything about your family. I'm so glad to be a part of it.
We're still processing the paperwork, but we'll let you know.
My one note about your family is that it's like you guys got to get better at clerical work.
I do appreciate you notarizing my letter.
You're welcome.
This just hurts my feelings a lot. Hey, Mikey, do you want to go crash a wedding here in a month?
100%.
It's just Mikey and me outside at a table, like just sitting there waiting to come in. It's going to be great.
I did finally get my bridesmaid dress if you want to see it.
I do want to see it. Oh, that's pretty.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
It's like a green, like flowy, beautiful dress.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll see it on Instagram around the time of Aaron's wedding.
Yeah, probably.
And if you look out the window in those photos, you'll see Mikey and me out there holding signs that say, "Congratulations, please let us in."
We want brownies. So their backseat is painted with cake, and he takes the opportunity to rush home to prepare because it's a formal wedding. And he runs home and gets a package from under the bed. And it's a tape and a book that say, "Exploring Your Masculinity." Now, I think this is the movie telling us something after the fact where, confessional, he seemed like he was like, "I'm not gay, so what do I do?" But in this scene, because he's got these tapes, it seems like maybe he has contemplated it before.
Oh, I definitely think he has.
Yeah, where this is not a surprise, and maybe this has been him not willing to admit to others, but also himself. So, thus proceeds one of the most both stereotypically offensive but also pretty funny scenes.
Yes.
And funny for different reasons, because it does play on stereotypes, which is not great. But the funniest part for me in this scene is that the tape seems to anticipate his actions.
Yes.
And that to me is hilarious.
That is, honestly, I agree with you. This stereotypical stuff is not great. It doesn't hold up well. But this scene is very funny.
Oh, yeah. Because it's like everything he does, it's like the tape knows.
Yeah.
And that cracks me up.
Yes.
And it's a joke that's played a few different ways, a couple different times in this scene. And it gets almost funnier every single time. Where it's like, how could it possibly know? It's like, you hate this, don't you? You want to be neat and tidy. And you're just like, first of all, that's a ridiculous, that doesn't mean anything. But it's funny that the tape goes, the idea that they would have pre-recorded that was very funny.
It's so great, yeah.
But he ends up dancing to Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive, which is great because it says that men don't dance, which is bullshit. Men dance.
I dance.
Gay, straight, all of the above.
I dance at weddings. Like, that's the only place that you'll see me dance, but I will lose my mind dancing at a wedding because it's fun.
Oh,
Play
yeah.
your cards right. I'll send you to seventh base because I give you a dance.
After you knock someone up and marry them?
You cannot dance with someone until after you marry them and have a child, Paige. It's right there.
Are you one of the Ponape brothers? Like, how is that a possible,
They definitely danced before they got people pregnant.
It's right
That is
there in
true.
numerology, book 14.
Oh, numerology is such bullshit.
Numerology is just about all the bases.
No, numerology is basically biblical QAnon. It's essentially when people are like, well, if you go to the Bible and add 2 plus 3 minus the 40 years walking in the desert, it means that President Trump will ascend the throne again in 2024. That's the kind of craziness that numerology gets into.
Look, if you are starting to question my faith where I go and QAnon a book of the Bible and decide that I don't give a lap dance until we're married and have children, I just need you to respect my freedom of my amendment rights.
freedom of my amendment rights?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, man. I think, we're all granted the right for a free, well-regulated Mikey.
I would like you to be more well-regulated, yes.
That's why I take fiber.
I don't know what is happening, but I'm
I don't know.
terrified.
We tumbled down a crazy Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole. Anyway, it did crack me up that the tape says men have bad backs. They do not dance.
That was funny, yes.
Oh, man. kick someone, bite someone's ear. Think about John Wayne. Arnold doesn't dance. He can barely walk.
That was hilarious. I thought it was very funny.
Oh my God. Very funny. So we cut to the next day at the wedding. And as they're getting her dressed, this is where her Jerry from Succession is like, do you have an attorney?
Yeah.
But she's like one of the bridesmaids. and then the little flower girl is just, my mom says it won't last.
Well,
And
your
then
mom's an
Debbie Reynolds-
alcoholic. It's so funny. So fucking funny. I love it so much. Yeah.
So good. And Tom Selleck is at the wedding in the back of the room.
Yeah.
Joan Cusack comes down the aisle. The wedding starts. They get through the section with objections. No one objects. The priest gets into, let us remember, we've got the deepest love and absolute honesty. Do you take this man? She says, I do. And then they get to him and they're like, do you take her to be your wife? And he just says, I'm gay.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're what? He's gay. I heard it. Well, what he meant to say was, he's like, no, mom and dad, I'm gay.
Yeah.
And they go back into the bride room where usually if you have a wedding venue or a venue that does a ton of weddings, they usually have a room for the bride to get dressed. And it's usually like right off the side. So that's where they go. And she basically launches into the like, I lost 75 pounds for you. And I'm like, again, girly, your body, your temple. Don't let anyone force you to lose weight you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And launches into this whole like, how dare you? Why didn't you lie to me? Was there any other time you could have told me this? And it's one of those things where you feel terrible because this is what a terrible day for her. But also I'm like, better today than 5 years from now, and better that he finally got it out. Like, I understand that it is rough for everybody and she's upset. I get that she's upset. I understand why, but I still like when Tom Selleck later says like, you're saving her from a life of being with someone who can't love her the way that she wants to be loved because it wouldn't be honest. It wouldn't be true to you.
Yeah. It is sad and it's terrible what happens to her character in this movie. But to me, it's sad that it lasted this long, not that it ended. Right?
Right. Exactly.
3 years is a long time without physical touch.
Yeah. It's a long time. But I also, I feel like he was clearly struggling and on a journey of his own. And I will always say, like, even if you are running away the day of the wedding, which sounds terrible, it sounds like it ruins people's lives.
Yeah.
The only thing that could ruin their lives more is going through with it and having it be a bad decision. So, like, run on the day of the wedding if that's what it has to be. Because, like, you know, don't do it later when there's more paperwork. Like, come on.
I mean, that's why Jerry from Secession asked, do you have a good attorney?
Do you have a good attorney? Yeah. My mom says it won't last. Well, your mom's an alcoholic. Anyway, so she takes off in their car and her like gathering the dress up into the front seat of the car. Hysterical. She drives away. He runs outside the church and he ends up talking to Tom Selleck and he's like, I just destroyed her life. I feel terrible. My parents are upset. And Tom Selleck is like, no, you saved her from what could have been worse. You were honest and it's tough right now, but you were honest. And he's mad because there's still a film camera in his face, which is also not great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of that was on camera because Tom Selleck's cameraman was also in the chapel with Tom Selleck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and he ends up punching Tom Selleck because honestly, I do feel like
He's kind of shitty.
He's shitty, but he also feels like he was forced out of the closet and it was maybe not his time and he maybe was not prepared to confront that or whatever. But meanwhile, back in Hollywood, Matt Dillon's character, Cameron Drake, sees him on the news and is like, oh my God, this was my fault.
Yeah.
I have to go do something.
Yeah.
And there is another eating disorder joke in this scene where his model girlfriend says, no, I was supposed to go to this thing tonight. I have to shower and vomit, which is real upsetting.
Yeah.
Don't love it. But we cut to his students all in kind of that like basement where they all hang out, where they're all like, so he was gay the whole time, but like he was also like, we loved him as a teacher. Like he was a great teacher. Like this shouldn't impact. And they have kind of this like short but contentious conversation between themselves where they're like, it didn't make him a worse teacher or anything. He was still great to us, essentially. We cut back to the wedding venue or the reception venue where Debbie Reynolds and all her friends are sitting around in what looks like it would have been a kick-ass 90s wedding. Like,
Yeah.
this wedding looks amazing. I'm kind of bummed we don't fully see it. Or we kind of do later, I guess.
Yeah.
And she says, I could understand about him being gay, but I can't understand how he could not want a wedding. And there was a part of me that's like, he probably does when he meets the right person, you know, like whatever.
Well, at this point, it couldn't
can't
get
happen.
married. Yeah, which is sad.
You could
but-
have a civil ceremony, but not. And this is where all of her friends go around saying truths that they've been afraid to share. And the first one is, my Rice Krispie treats are not my recipe. They're this dead woman's that I stole, which is very funny to me.
That's a dead woman's treats.
A dead woman's treat. The next one is like, I hated Bridges of Madison County. And then the third one is, my husband has 3 testicles and it's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Oh my God. Yeah.
And everyone laughs. And were you picturing it like 2 with 1 behind or in front, or like
No.
a Total Recall scenario?
Yep. That's what I was
3
thinking.
in a row.
Just 3 in a row. Yep. Get your balls to Mars.
I love Total Recall.
I do too. I wish.
I know. We should do that 3rd podcast at some point. That action movie podcast.
That makes me tired.
So we cut back to his house where he's sitting alone, and Wilford Brimley comes home to bring him a slice of wedding cake from his mom. And he asks him, are you going to have an operation? Which I was like, for what? Like, he's gay. Like, I don't understand. And it's clearly that his dad doesn't understand.
Yeah, well, I did like that his dad's like, I'm a farmer. Like, I don't know. I'm in way over my head. But it's clear that like Walter Brumley like loves Kevin Kline. Like, he loves his son, right? Like,
Of course. Well, and he asks, he's like, will you go to graduation tomorrow? And he's like, well, they fired me basically as soon as I left the church. And his dad's like, that's not right. You taught those kids. If you're not there, what are they going to think? Basically, like, you should be there for them to support the kids. Fuck what everyone else says. And then as he leaves, he said, did Barbara do something to you? As in, did Barbara Streisand make you gay? Which is such a bonkers, crazy question.
I sort of loved it, though.
No. I read that. I read that neuterology.
Neuterology?
That's how you get -3 testicles.
What they do is they take your 3rd testicle, cut it up, and then use divination to figure out the future.
Yeah. They mix it with some like bird bones and like toss some dice and see what happens.
I'm sorry, I rewatched Rome on HBO, and they do that some in that show.
I should do that.
So good.
I loved Rome.
Yeah, it was really good.
Rome was so good. So we cut to Cameron Drake and his model girlfriend have arrived at a local motel, and she is not handling it great. And he is basically going to go find Mr. Beckett. And he says, there's a diner down the block. Eat something. I beg of you. You look like a swizzle stick. Which is not great, because as much as I am not here for fat shaming, also not here for skinny shaming. I'm not here for body shaming of any types.
Yeah, I mean, body shaming can go either way. Sort of like when you guys call me a skinny bitch.
Shut you fucking swivel switch.
Oh, swing and a miss, my man. Swing and a miss.
What's a swizzle stick?
A swizzle stick is the thing you use to stir a mixed drink.
Yeah, you stupid crazy straw.
Anyway, he leaves his model girlfriend in the motel, and she doesn't know how to dial a phone, which is pretty funny. We cut to the local roadhouse where Joan Cusack rolls up and is like, give me drinks and someone fuck me, please.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything anymore. I spent 3 years with someone who didn't touch me. Somebody fucking touch me. And Tom Selleck sits next to her because he's slimy and wants the story. And she's just like, am I repulsive? And he's like, no, this is about him, not you.
Right.
You're wonderful. He should have told you years ago. And she's like, will you sleep with me? And he's like, I'm gay. And she's like, is everybody?
I love the way they do that, though, because they cut to it outside from like a huge wide shot. So like you see the entire bar from the outside, right? Exterior shots, you might call them. And she walks out, opens both doors, and just yells into the night. It was so fucking funny.
Well, and she walks out into the street and she's like literally trying to wave cars down. Like, will you marry me? I already have the dress, which is a crazy thing to say, but very, very sad. It made me very sad for her. And she waves down a car, ends up kind of flopping onto the front of it. It turns out it's Cameron. Now, we know from earlier in the movie that she helped tutor Cameron in Shakespeare, and they read Romeo and Juliet to each other when she was a student teacher, which to me was like she was maybe 22 and he was like 18, which is still not great. But now they are both considerably far from high school and adults, and it's probably not a crazy age difference.
Yes, I did not have a problem with them hooking up or perhaps being together. Like, I had no problem with it at this point.
At this point,
Yeah.
yes. Because I feel like they are both grown-ups who went out into their respective worlds and then came back and met again, and that just happens sometimes.
It absolutely does. Like, my high school girlfriend, when she was in college, got pregnant by someone who was the student teacher at our school.
Oh, no.
She was a year ahead of me.
Okay.
And he was a student teacher at our school my senior year. So she was already in college, did not meet him until she was at college. And
Okay.
that it just wasn't a problem, like it wasn't weird really. It was a funny story, but it wasn't weird,
Yeah.
Right.
Second base.
What is your baseball metaphor? Like, I need you to write out all of the 17 bases you have.
At this point, it's closer to basketball than
I know,
baseball.
right?
I don't understand.
It might be cricket. I don't know anything about cricket.
I want us to take a time out because headcanon,
Oh, okay.
Matt Dillon outs him, comes to steal his wife because he's still mad.
You think it
about
was
that
intentional?
joke about him getting nominated from the beginning of the movie.
It
well,
absolutely
he wasn't there to
was.
see that joke.
Oh, he had spies.
Okay.
I honestly think it was Matt Dillon's master plan the entire time. He's like, I got to go to Hollywood. I got to win an Oscar. That way I can break them up by outing him. And then I could swing in and pick up the pieces.
Oh, God.
His real name? Kaiser Soze.
Kaiser Roll Soze.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was teaching yeast how to rise.
I was going to say the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was toasting bread. It's delicious.
Honestly, it
The
is.
best trick the devil ever taught me to play.
What's a
What did you
banjo?
just say?
What the fuck, Mikey? Like, what are you saying with your mouth right now?
This is not the greatest loaf in the world.
No.
No. This is just a tribute.
The greatest trick the devil played on us was teaching me how to do fifth base.
What's fifth base?
We are on a podcast. I can't talk about it. It's dinner and a movie.
Why is that after you get them pregnant and get married? Mikey does not date you until you're pregnant with his baby and you've been married for 6 months. That's when he unchains you from his bed and takes you out of the house on a date.
Oh, I don't understand why you got to give such a hard stance on traditionalism.
You know, Mikey, the guy on the podcast who stands for traditional family values.
That's right. That's me from Deuterology.
Deuterology is where you poop and then like divine the future from your shit.
This just sounds like the SNL sketch about Scientology that's neurotology.
I'm into it.
Anyway, the joke I was trying to make was it was a conspiracy theory against his high school teacher, but we got there.
Anyway, he recognizes her and is like, what happened to your body? And then she says, I was fat and I swore I'd become someone else, but now I'm more miserable than ever and I'm starving. Which, like, I was actually really glad the movie included that because I was like, finally, this movie admitting that just purely being skinny does not make you happy, that it is not connected, that you have to fix the inside and then the outside can be whatever. And so he then is like, why did you change? You were so beautiful. Like, you still are. You always are.
Yeah.
And then he says, skinny girls are so annoying sometimes. And I'm like, this is so close to being good, but it's not. Like, it's still body shamey. It's not great.
Right.
I know you're the last woman at this bar crying in a wedding dress, but
Give me 10 minutes to rewrite these sets of lines and it would be wonderful. But like, it's because it's so close. Like, we've clearly set up, like, there's hints that he is into bigger girls earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And then this kind of hammers it home. And so, like, you could absolutely make this better and kinder, and they don't, which is kind of a bummer. But then they start reciting the Romeo and Juliet balcony speech to each other, which is very sweet.
It is very sweet.
yeah, she taught it to him.
They call that grooming page.
Fuck you guys.
I actually did sort of like this. I'm just joking. Like I don't know. I had no problem with it.
Anyway, and they end up dancing in the middle of the street, which is very sweet.
Yeah.
But also dangerous.
Nah,
Yes.
traffic's not a big problem in this one horse town. It's fine.
Anyway, we cut to he's in his classroom and it's empty. And he runs into the one student he helped get into college. And he says, like, good luck next year. But we cut to graduation. He's not on stage. There's just an empty chair where he would have been. And I did think it was funny that they recited the school's motto in Latin, and it was study, learn, leave.
I didn't realize that, but that's amazing.
That was really funny to me. But so he comes and sits on the stage. And I'm like, good for you. Yes. But then they go to announce the teacher of the year, and it's this dude that no one likes. Like, no one gives a shit.
Right? I did love his speech. He's like, Hoosiers. What is a Hoosier?
Is a Hoosier. And that's the only part of the speech we ever get.
And he starts it twice. Like he tries to restart it later. It's so dumb. I love it.
It's so funny. But Cameron Drake interrupts graduation, and he's basically like, oh, so you fired him because he's gay? And they're like, no, the community want it. And they try to kind of like pawn it off on the community.
Yeah. I did like that his brother stands up and is like, well, I'm a member of the community and I don't mind that he's gay. And Bob Newhart's like, well, he's your brother. He's like, oh, yeah.
Right. Well, and the one student stands up and says that he's gay, and kind of everyone kind of follows suit.
It's the Spartacus moment. Yeah.
It's the I'm Spartacus moment,
Yeah.
which I think is not quite what this scene needed, to be honest with you. It muddies the metaphor a bit.
Honestly, like, I feel like it would have been more impactful if, like, they all stood up and were like, I don't care that he's gay. You know, like.
Either that, or I would have taken that one student, the one that we know he has kind of a very close friendship with.
The one who got the scholarship that, like, Kevin Kline
Yes.
took him to the college and all that stuff. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That one student saying, I'm gay, and he made me feel comfortable enough to tell you.
Okay, something like that.
I
Yeah.
would have been okay with that too. And I think they're trying to make this we as a community accept him and love him for who he is.
Yeah.
It's just a little odd the way they do it. I think I would have preferred them being like, no, we love him,
Yeah.
or whatever. But anyway.
But for 25 years ago, great.
Yeah, sure. I do like Bob Newhart trying to explain. He's like, it's a gonad thing. I mean, a grown-up thing. You're like, what?
Bob Newhart is so, I don't know, he's just very, very good at this sort of thing. Like, even in the credits when they're dancing at the, like, post-wedding, we'll get to
Right.
what it is, right? But, like, they're doing the conga line, and
Right.
Kevin Kline is holding on to Bob Newhart's hips like you do in a conga line. And Bob Newhart looks so uncomfortable, and it's so fucking funny. And it's like a shot they only used for the credits. Like, and he's just, like,
Right.
giving it 1,000%. Love Bob Newhart.
I do love that they go around town and people admit other things about themselves, where she's like, I run the bridal barn and he has perfect taste. I'm Howard's stylist and I'm bald.
Yeah.
Like,
He rips his own toupee off? Yeah.
well, and then the volunteer fire brigade stands up and they just go, yay! But essentially, Cameron Drake gives him the Oscar,
Yes.
and they play like the Oscar theme, the band does, which
Yeah.
is pretty funny.
That's the most unrealistic thing about this whole thing is that they've played a really good Oscar theme. There wasn't like a
Yeah. But we cut to a wedding. And at first we don't know whose wedding it is. And he's talking to Tom Selleck, who is also there in a suit.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you're not filming this? He's like, no, this is important. It doesn't need to be. This is more important than showbiz. And we cut to the actual wedding, and it's his parents renewing their vows so his mom can have the wedding she wants. And I support this 1,000,000%.
Same.
Instead of forcing other people to get married, renew your fucking vows, live your life, do whatever you want to do.
Paige, will it surprise you at all if I admit that I fully was weeping when they revealed it was mom and dad renewing their vows?
I was clapping for them. I was super excited. But when in the scene at graduation where the one student stands up, and I thought for sure he was gonna be like, I'm gay, he's the reason I felt comfortable telling you,
Right.
or whatever, I started crying, and then it became kind of a weird comical scene, and I was like, oh, maybe not.
I'm going to take these tears back, which is base 12, Mikey. That's when that's when you don't cry anymore.
No,
Right.
base 12 is where you take a pepper grinder, potato peeler, and you make.
Oh, well, that sounds horrible, Mikey.
Mikey, I think you should talk to someone. And Todd, we need to talk about the podcast right away.
Immediately. Yeah. I'm not sure that's legal, Mikey.
You know, I'm tired of you people low carb.
What do you mean,
shaming me.
you Oh, the low carb people. Okay.
the Atkins, if you will. Anyway, so we cut to the reception. Everyone's dancing. We kind of get shots of everybody. So Cameron and Emily seem to end up together, and she's eating cheesy poofs, and I love this for her.
Yes.
Although I do still think she should talk to someone about her relationship with food and exercise.
Well, yeah, but also she was in a pretty being left on the altar for any
everyone should
reason
go
is
to
pretty
therapy.
traumatic. Yeah.
The model ends up with his brother, and the ending song that they're dancing to is Macho Man, and that's pretty fun.
It is.
And
that's the movie. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, how do you guys feel about In and Out?
Definitely problematic elements.
Sure.
Definitely some stereotype issues. Wish there were more actual gay people in it.
Yeah.
But it is very funny, and I did enjoy watching it quite a bit today.
Yeah.
It made me feel nice.
I really, really enjoyed it. And I was really, really shocked at how well it held up, knowing that it's a 90s movie about a gay relationship or someone coming out, really. When I think about it, like, this really isn't a romantic comedy so much because Kevin Kline doesn't fall in love with Tom Selleck. Like, I don't really think they end up together at the end of this movie.
I don't think they should.
Me either, but like it's more about, I guess Tom Selleck is there because he's a reporter and he does sort of talk to him about how, hey, it seems like it's going to be the end of the world. It's going to open up a whole new world. Like he does sort of give him the confidence to come out, I think, on some level, but there really isn't, I don't feel like, romantic chemistry there. Like Tom Selleck does kiss him, but I feel like that's more to prove a point than it is to like hook up, you know?
Right.
Which I sort of like about the movie.
Do you think that Debbie Reynolds and Wilford Brimley are still together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really? Because I think that one of them is the thing. Just at the wedding reception, there's just a noose in the background, and we've got all the blood cups.
Can't let it escape. That's the whole world.
With diabetes.
Probability of total world infection. Click, click, click.
But Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I have a few. A handful.
Well,
Small.
here it is with your fun facts. Kevin
Small
Kline,
handful
fun
of
facts.
fun facts. A lot of the trivia that people have listed online for this movie is just like, all these people were in it and went on to be in other things. And I'm like, yes, there's a million famous people in this movie. That's not really trivia. We watched the movie.
I know. And I love, because you find those on like IMDb and you're like, yeah, I know. I'm looking at IMDb.
Right.
You don't have to also give me the same information I would find on this website.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Oscar statuette used in the film is Kevin Kline's.
What?
It's the one. It's the one he won in 1989 for his performance in A Fish Called Wanda.
That's amazing.
That's a good movie, too.
Yeah. So the disco group Village People would originally not give them the permission to use Macho Man, which is used multiple times in the movie.
Really? Okay.
So the studio was able to get the rights for a cover. So they had a disco tribute band called the Boogie Nights, and that's Nights, Knight.
You mean Knit, Paige? Knit is how you spell night.
Knit?
If I learned anything from me and our A Knight's Tale episode, it's Knit.
Knit.
Because I'm an idiot. Jesus.
Anyway, the Boogie Nights were hired to record a cover version, and that's what they had in the early edits. However, the Village People heard the cover and were like, fuck no, and then let them use the actual song. So the Boogie Nights version was never used.
I love that, though.
So the high school where this was shot, Pompton Lakes High School in New Jersey, has left a lot of the features of what was added for this movie in place. So the building looks almost identical to the way that it looked during filming today. Okay. Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So Joan Cusack and Matt Dillon are actually only 2 years apart in real life, and they actually have played classmates and age contemporaries multiple times in other movies.
Okay.
And most notably My Bodyguard in 1980. Joan Cusack's been asked about it. In this movie, she says she was a student teacher somewhere between 20 and 22, and that's why they're so close in age. So that's how she explains it.
Do you know what the age difference is between Joan Cusack and Kevin Kline is?
No, I'm sure it's sizable. What is it?
So Joan Cusack, was born in 1962. Kevin Kline was born in 1947.
Oh, 47.
Yeah, so they're 15 years apart, which honestly is not the biggest difference we've had on this show before, but
No.
it's still pretty sizable.
It's no Dr. Dan Chalice.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with him.
No, I do think Tom Atkins is the perfect man, so I agree. But I do feel like he should date more age-appropriate women.
Well, he does in real life because his actual wife was in that movie, remember? Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the time.
So Debbie Reynolds agreed to be in this movie because of her relationship with Frank Oz, who had worked with her daughter extensively in all of the Star Wars movies and a handful of other things.
Right. Because if you don't know, that's Princess Leia's mom.
Yeah. And Frank Oz has also actually worked with Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billie Lourd. So he's actually worked with all three. So granddaughter,
That's awesome.
daughter, and mother.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Damn right, Mikey. Hell yeah.
The Roadhouse bar they used is an exterior. It's the Homestead restaurant in Sparta, New Jersey. And it looks almost exactly like that. They just changed the sign. And then the interior was a closed bar that had been closed for years that they just like shot things in over time. So you'll see it in a handful of other movies as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the opening sequence, the one that runs through the credits, is actually of Clinton, New Jersey. And you can actually see a little bit of Red Mill on the left. So like Red Mill grain and things like that. Like Bob's Red Mill, the food company. So if you're super into flour and care about different kinds of flour, you might have noticed that in this film.
All right.
There you go. The actor who plays Matt Dillon's lover in the fake film To Serve and Protect makes a reference to Bette Midler because it's beaches in the movie.
Yeah.
But he actually goes on to play Miller's ex-husband in The First Wives Club the year before this movie is made.
No shit.
So yeah,
That's great.
it's kind of a fun little in joke, but those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk some box office. So what do you think the budget for In-N-Out was in 1997?
$10 million?
I'm going to go 15.
Okay. Paige, you're closer, but you're still off by $20 million. It was $35 million.
That's because there's so many people in this.
Well, and all of them are stars. If you adjust that for inflation, that's $63 million today. Now, again, in 97, it was only $35 million. It did come out September 19th, 1997, and it was number one at the box office the week it came out, which I was a little surprised by that.
I'm surprised about all of this.
Yeah, so, okay, and it beat, obviously In-N-Out was number one that weekend. It beat The Game, which is a great Michael Douglas movie. The Game was number two.
That's the one where he gets like kidnapped, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sean Penn, Michael. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Wes Craven's Wishmaster was number three that week. LA Confidential, which I know is a little problematic now because of Kevin Spacey, but is also a great movie, was number four.
That movie's fantastic.
It is really good. And that movie came out that weekend.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, sorry. And so did Wishmaster. Now, The Full Monty was also...
Let's not
the
put
Full Monty
Wishmaster.
was out this same week. Yeah, let's not. Wishmaster is
Wishmaster and LA Confidential are not the same league of film.
As far
No.
as box office is concerned, in their opening week, Wishmaster was better. I haven't seen Wishmaster. I have no idea, but it beat LA Confidential in its first week out. And then number five was The Full Monty, and The Full Monty had been out for 6 weeks.
That was a slow burner.
Yeah. Other notable movies that were out at this time, G.I. Jane was 7, Money Talks was 8, Air Force One was 9.
Oh, Air Force One.
Men in Black was 13. George of the Jungle was 14. Hercules was 15.
George of the Jungle. I'm going to do that on this show at some point.
There were so many like big movies in the theaters. Con Air was out this weekend. Anyway, whatever.
Con Air.
I know,
yes.
I know. So anyway, what do you think In-N-Out made in its opening weekend? And again, it was September 19th, 1997, and it was number one.
Well, a double animal style with fries is going to be somewhere between $8 and $10. I'm going to say opening weekend 22.
Okay.
Shit, that was really close. I'm going to say 23.
All right, it was actually $15 million. The next closest movie was at $9 million.
Okay.
And it's interesting, In-N-Out was in less theaters than both the number 2 and number 3 movie that weekend. And it still won.
Well, there are places that wouldn't show it, I'm sure.
I'm sure a lot of those places were in the South. Although I remember seeing this in the theaters.
Really?
So like it played in Nashville for sure. Now Tullahoma or places just outside Nashville, I'm sure they skipped in and out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember seeing the cover in Blockbuster all the time.
Oh yeah.
So like when you picked it, I'd never seen it, but I'd seen the cover. The cover is
absolutely.
famous.
So it was in the theaters for a total of 19 weeks. But what do you think it made domestically at the box office in those 19 weeks?
I'm gonna say 45.
Okay.
I'm going to say 115.
Wow. Okay, Mikey, that's a little bit high. It made $63.8 million domestically and then 19.4 internationally for a total of $83.2 million. And if you adjust that for inflation, it's almost $150 million today. It made pretty good money, man, which is also surprising for me. I mean, a lot of movies that feature a gay story, even today, don't always make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but this one did. This one made a lot of money. Anyway, that's your box office. So this week I made you all watch In and Out, and you're welcome, honestly. Paige, it's your turn next week, so what are you making us watch?
It's my turn. And if you are in the United States and have Hulu and other places too, I think it came out almost everywhere.
Okay.
On Hulu today, the day we're recording this, June 3rd, Fire Island was released. So we are going to be watching Fire Island for our next episode.
All right, so your homework for next week is to get wine drunk and watch Fire Island on Hulu or whatever you can if you're outside the U.S.
Yep.
Cool. I'll be looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
I am too. I saw the trailer and it looked very funny. It also has Bowen Yang in it, who's one of my favorites. I find him hilarious on SNL.
Well, awesome. Well, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
Yeah, Missy Sowinski.
Well, what does Misky Sowinski have to say?
I hope Paige or even Todd W. ...
Do you want me to look it up?
No, I think we'll get it. Please read in a Scottish accent.
Oh, thank God. I love the accents. They're my favorite.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Are you ready, Mikey?
I'm fat bastard.
No.
Please read in a Scottish accent.
I don't know what that's supposed to be, but it's not Scottish.
In light of me finally watching and absolutely being obsessed with Outlander.
Yay!
Nice.
Also, I really need someone to rave about it with. Boo.
Well, Mike, if you would have finished watching it, then
Yeah.
maybe you'd understand.
I'm the leprechaun.
Leprechauns are Irish.
One of
Yeah,
my
like
We need Clan McMuffin, not
right,
Leprechaun.
right. I'm a clown.
Highlander!
You can take our lives, but you can never take our review.
My name is Scrooge McDuck, and one of my favorite podcasts is by far. The trio are hilarious and make listening to every episode amazing, even if you... It keeps going to English.
I almost want to see if I can try and do it just from the sheer amount of Outlander I've watched.
If you haven't seen the movie, you may never see the movie.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I started listening right after they posted the first few episodes and can't get enough.
I'm Handsome Rob. If it's on the menu, yeah.
If you think it's not going to leave a very similar review on the horror version, to up my chances of this being read, you're sadly mistaken. 5 stars.
Well, Miss Sowinski, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. And so sorry that none of us can do a Scottish accent.
No, I'm sorry.
It's a me, a Scottish person.
It's a me, a Scottish accent.
It's me, Scotland.
It's a me. I'm a Mick Mario.
I'm from Clan McMario.
Clan McMario.
Would you like a classic Scottish cuisine? Spaghetti.
Spaghetti wrapped in a haggis.
Haggis spaghetti. All right. So, yeah, if you want us to read your 5-star review, leave us a 5-star review.
Haggis spaghetti.
Is that 10th base?
You got to fuck the haggis first, though. All right.
I gotta go. My husband baked a loaf of bread for me.
He just opens the door and he's in a shower, like with like sourdough bread, like scrubbing himself. So, yeah, guys, if you like this power throuple that we have here on this podcast, make sure to check out our other podcast, The Horror Virgin. And that is the only other podcast that Mikey and I are on. But Paige gets around and she is on 2 other podcasts, Black Card Rehab and Cult Podcast. So guys, definitely check out those because they're amazing. If you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show.
Yes.
on Instagram, and we are at something else on Twitter, who I just have never taken the time to learn
It's just Romancing Pod Show, because they have a character limit, and it's show, SHO, like Showtime.
So guys, check that out as well. And if you want to follow us all individually, Paige is at Rampage Wesley everywhere, including TikTok, except for Twitter, where she is at Paige Wesley. Mikey is at MRandolph24, and I am at Todd J. Awesome everywhere. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee, 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm Todd.
And you loof us to completion.
I want to go in and out of you.
No, what?
That's his pickup line for the movie, Paige. That's what he does every time.
Not without grilled onions.
And Thousand Island sauce. Bye. Yeah. I lost my voice, nerds.